Okay, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. In today's episode, we have so many awesome myths that you guys suggested on the last episode, so just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters, make sure to go down in the comments and drop a comment of that myth for a pretty good chance to be featured. Also, while you're at it, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. Let's see if we can smash 2,000 likes on today's episode. That would be insane. As well, if you do enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe and turn on those post notifications to never miss another Fortnite Mythbusters episode. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right on in to today's episode. Kicking things off, jumping straight into the first myth. The first myth is, can a player who's on fire light a natural campfire themselves? Now, this myth was highly requested. To begin, I basically had to find a group of fireflies and get a firefly jar, where I then made my way to the closest natural campfire around the map. I threw the firefly jar down onto the ground, trying to light my player onto fire, but as soon as I left the group, my player immediately went back to normal. The fire didn't really transfer over. I then got a little bit more creative. I added some wooden buildings all the way up very close to the natural campfire, where I then stood on top of the fire, had it transfer over to my player, and it wouldn't light it. It wouldn't do anything. Going straight into the next myth, and surprisingly a highly requested myth. This myth is, can you slide uphill faster than as if you were walking? I'm sure all of you have experienced, if you slide down a hill, it is way more fast than as if you were walking, and a lot of people like to argue back and forth whether or not it's faster to slide around the map rather than just normally running, even if it is flat ground. Now, trying this out in game, I ran the exact same path up the hill. One side I was just regular running, the other side I was running as well as spamming my little slide button as many times as I possibly can. That way I was sliding as much distance as possible. Now, I'm not surprised though, it's not faster one bit. Honestly, it seems like a little bit slower and more of a hassle. Even if you are running, you still could run around, jump around, look at your surroundings, but if you are sliding up the hill, you're only focused on sliding. So if anything, it's only distracting you from the game when you get zero gain out of it. Going into the next myth, and another highly requested myth. This myth is, can you use an animal like a chicken or one of the pigs around the map to open up the vault door, since it requires more than one player? Now, obviously, I'm sure all of you know you could use the vault guards to open up the vault when it scans for it, but can you use the animals around the map? I mean, that would be a little overpowered, don't you think? We're trying this out in game. It was pretty difficult, honestly, to find an animal. I think they like decrease the spawn rates of them, but I finally managed to find a chicken, where I then ran over to the nearest outpost, made my way all the way down to the vault door, where I had to scan both me and the chicken. I was actually shocked to see that it did in fact work. The vault door opened, I had access to all of the loot, and we were sent on our way. This is extremely overpowered, and I know I'm definitely gonna use this in game, because shooting the vault guards and, you know, downing them, taking them down to the vault, a lot of players can hear those gunshots from a pretty good distance, and they might come ambush you while you are in the vault yourself. I went straight into the next myth. The next myth is, what happens when you throw a chiller grenade at the IO guards or even the NPCs that are around the map? Will it affect them too? This is actually a very good myth, especially with how common these chiller grenades are. I swear I get them every single house that I run into in game. They're all over the place. When trying this myth out, I went to one of the guards who are guarding the outposts around the map, the outposts that have the vaults inside of them. I then threw the chiller grenade, where it launched me back as well as him. The ice feet also went onto the NPC. It made the same exact, you know, ice noise, the ice crunching. The effect lasted the same amount of time as it would for a normal player, and you know, it was pretty interesting to say the least. This is really great to know, especially if you're in a fight. I know these NPCs have aimbots, so if they are absolutely lasering you, you can just throw a chiller grenade and get out of the fight yourself, as well as launch them back a good amount. Going straight into the next myth. The next myth is, will Spicy Chugsplashes affect the vault guard's walking speed? Now, we already know whenever you throw down a Spicy Chugsplash, it will give you the hot chili pepper effect, making your player run around a lot faster than normal. But will this effect transfer over to the vault guards, or even I added in a little extra to the drivers of the Santa truck? Trying this myth out, the difficult part was actually finding the Spicy Chugsplashes. After I found some, I made my way over to the vault guards at the outposts. I threw them down, and it actually did affect them. You could see the steam coming from their ears, and they did slightly walk a little bit faster. When the vault guards also get angry, they will run slightly faster, and this is the same case for all of the players on the Santa truck. You throw down the Spicy Chugsplashes, the player in the back will have his ears steaming, as well as if you jump to the front and you look through the windows, they will also, but they never get out and run around anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Going straight into the next myth is, can you stop a gas pump that is about to explode with a chug splash? Now, if you don't know already, you could use chug splashes or even spicy chug splashes to put out fires around the map. So if there's a natural campfire on fire or even wooden structures, if you throw the chug splashes, it'll actually put it out. Now, the gas pumps or even the gas cans, when they are about to explode, they are on fire. So can you prevent that explosion from happening just by throwing a chug splash? When I tried this out in game, I had myself some spicy chug splashes where I then made my way over to the gas station. I hit the fuel pump a few times to the point where it was about to explode, and I threw the chug splashes and it would not put out the fire one bit. I tried this a few more times, nothing ever worked. So if you ever do hear the gas pump about to explode, you might want to leave the area because there's no turning back from that point. Going into the next myth, and another highly requested myth. This myth is, can structures that are already burning light a natural campfire? Now, a lot of players this chapter actually do use the firefly jars and light a lot of builds on fire, purely because they're more around the map. You will see them as ground loot, so they're fairly common. So when I tried this out, I basically set up a wall as well as like a cone to go directly over the natural campfire. I threw down the firefly jar where the wall actually got lit on fire, but as soon as the wall broke, it never transferred over to the cone, which I thought was interesting. I then threw the firefly jar directly onto the cone where it did catch on fire, and it would actually set the natural campfire on fire as well. Now, the only bummer about this is that the builds will actually not stoke the campfire. The builds will slowly die out, and then eventually when they break, the campfire will be the only thing left around, and you have to stoke it yourself. So it does 2 HP per second until you stoke it, where it gives it that extra little speed boost. Going into the next myth, and a pretty funny myth. This myth is, what happens when you throw off-road tires on the Santa truck that is driving around? Now, the last myth we tried out with the off-road tires, we tried to throw them on the quad crasher, and unfortunately that did not work. But with the Santa truck driving around the map, it's a literal semi that you could drive yourself, so it would only make sense for the off-road tires to go onto it. After sneaking around for a bit and finally coming across the truck, I had the off-road tires ready. I threw it at the perfect timing where the truck launched up into the air a little bit, and the truck was also lifted. The off-road tires actually managed to work. Now, it's a little buggy getting onto it. It's a difficult jump, but it still is possible. But look at this. It's extremely funny. Like, who would ever expect this truck to have off-road tires? I mean, I wouldn't. Overall, though, definitely a pretty cool and funny myth. Going straight into the next myth. The next myth is, what happens when you place an armored wall in front of the Santa truck that is driving around the map? This is a very, very good myth. In the previous episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters, we found out that if you place regular walls in front of the Santa truck, it will usually just drive straight through it, or if they can't get by, they will shoot the walls out until they break. But with an armored wall being more than 10 times the HP, what happened? With the armored walls, I was surprised to see that when the Santa truck finally hit them, it would drive literally straight into the walls, and they would try and make their way all the way around it. They'll even go off-roading, where I then placed another wall in front of their path, where they seemed stuck for a minute until the passenger literally shot out the entire wall for a solid minute straight. Definitely a very interesting myth. I had no clue that was gonna happen, and it definitely stops them in their tracks. Definitely a very, very good myth to keep in mind. Going into the last and final myth. This myth is, what happens when you throw a present into a vault? Now, this is actually a very, very good myth. I tried this out in a regular game as well as a playground. Now, in the playground, the vault door will actually not spawn on the vault, but when you do still throw the present, it will replace all of the unbreakable walls with all of the present walls, and some of them you can manage to actually destroy. But if they are on the unbreakable walls, one side you cannot break it, the other side will show the present wall, but you still cannot break it as well. Now, I went into a regular match where the vault walls will actually spawn. I then threw the present down where it would actually replace the vault door slightly. It'll do the same exact glitch, but you still need to have access with another player in order to open up the vault doors. So it would be pretty cool if you could sneak into the vault just by replacing the walls, but unfortunately that is not the case this time.